I want to ask you about a couple of questions of competition. It strikes me, and we talked about this the last time you were here on this stage, that you're really you're in a very interesting phase. You're in what some may call the pre-IPO stage. I won't even bother asking you when that's happening because your eyes will glaze.
Well, a couple years ago, you asked me when
I asked you a couple years ago, and you're like, it will be a couple years from now. It's like, God, it's so far away, a couple years from now. So I'm waiting for that S1 to drop. But I know
don't hold your breath.
Yes, don't hold your breath, exactly. But there is something that I wonder, with Open Graph and Facebook Connect on so many, and likes and everything just spreading out across the web, it strikes me you're ready to distribute Facebook's business model off domain, and do a friend or a social graph driven ad network, not unlike what Google did about this time in its history, 6 years in, which was AdSense. Do you think that's a reasonably good idea?
Well, I think it's earlier stage than Google was when they did that. So I have no idea when or if it'll make sense to do something like that. I mean, we spent a lot of time building up our ad system and making it.
You have a very, very good, as I understand it, and a very profitable ad system that's starting to scale to the billions in revenue just for your domain.
We're doing okay.
I've heard. But the web's much bigger. There's a whole other web out there that's waiting for...
And you've been very successful with non-monetized Facebook reaching out onto the web.
Right, so you've got sort of you're in. You just need to light that bad boy up.
The wiring is there.
I mean, yeah, we're getting started with ads, and I think that's ramping up well. And
nine figures isn't just getting started.
I think it is.
9 figures is you've landed and taken over a lot of territory.
I think we have a lot left to do. And same on the credit side, right, where that one is really just getting started. And here's the way that I look at it, right? Rather than kind of pushing out any of these systems aggressively or anything like that, I think that over the next 5 years, most industries are going to get rethought to be social and designed around people. Right? I mean, this is kind of the evolution that we've seen at Facebook, right? I mean, we started, just built the first Facebook directory product when I was in college, and the whole theory was, there were all these products out there. If you wanted music, you can use Kazaa back then, right, or iTunes. If you wanted reference material, you could use Wikipedia. If you wanted to search the web, you could use Google. If you wanted to look up anything to buy, you could use Amazon. There was no people service. And this struck us as really weird because, humans are hardwired to be very interested in people, just psychologically. It's deeply wired into our brains. So we built this directory people service, and it immediately became the most engaging product that was on the web. Right? And it didn't have the biggest user base immediately, but it had the most usage per user from the beginning. And
what are those numbers today? I mean, what's your...
one of the things that's crazy is we still have more than 50% of people who are on Facebook using it every day. More than 500 million people, more than 50% every day. And now it's growing because of all the mobile stuff. So then a few years in, a couple of engineers at the company kind of branched off and said, okay, we're going to build different products, right? And we got photos, and we got the first version of groups and events, and at this phase, all these projects kind of had the same thing in common. They were groups of 2 or 3 people competing against whole startups that were out there, right? I mean, Flickr was a photo-sharing startup, and that's all that they did, right? And there were group companies and event companies, and we had these teams of 2 or 3 people, and they were building, usually over a period of just a couple of months, very simple versions of these products, right? I mean, our initial photo product didn't have high-resolution photos. It didn't have printing. You couldn't even reorder the photos in an album. But the thing that it had was it was very deeply socially integrated, right? I mean, you uploaded a photo, and it went to all your friends immediately, and they could all see it, and they could interact with you around it. And it turned out that social feature was more important than every other feature put together. And very quickly, our Photos product became the most used Photos product on the web. Same thing with groups, Same thing with events. Over the last 5 years, we've kind of filled in a lot of those products to make them more fully featured because we think you should have high quality and good social products. But the bottom line that we found was that you make something social, and that kind of rethinks the whole space. Right? A social version of anything can almost always be much more engaging and outperform a non-social version. So 2007, we pivoted and said, okay, instead of building all these little things ourselves, let's build a platform so that other people can build these. And since then, we've seen a lot of really interesting innovation.
But you are also building them yourself. I mean, Facebook
we're
Places
building some ourselves.
Good example.
We're building some ourselves, but a lot of them we're not going to build ourselves, right? And especially around content, right? So, I mean, the games part of the platform has been really interesting. And Fred was just talking about this when he was up here before. And there have been 4 really good game companies that have been built almost entirely on top of Facebook, right? I mean, Zynga, Playfish, Playdom, and Crowdstar are really meaningful companies. I mean, Playdom was just bought for $750 million. Playfish was bought for almost $500 million. Zynga, obviously independent and worth multiple billions of dollars. But the way that we look at this is that I mean, that's really disruptive, right? I mean, Zynga's market cap, I think, at this point is greater than EA's, right? And that's like structural disruption in an industry because they went at it and built social games that are just much more engaging on a per-user basis.
By the way, what you just said contradicts Fred Wilson's point that Zynga is the only successful company built on the Facebook platform. You just named 4.
Well, the way that we look at it is if you look at a lot of platforms, I do agree that games have been the first big vertical to tip, right? And that have gotten rethought to be completely social. But I think that's actually true on most platforms, right? On an iPhone and an iPad, games were some of the first major things that took off. Even if you go back to the early PC, some of the first things that got people to bring PCs into their home were games.
So what do you think the next things are?
It's really tough to predict because I think a lot of it comes down to excellent entrepreneurs with vision, right? And I mean, it really isn't like, it's not obvious, right, how you don't just like plug social stuff in and it works.
Well, these excellent entrepreneurs in the audience would like to know the ones you're going to do so they can steer clear of them.
I think, anything that, I think it's actually pretty clear the type of stuff that we're going to do and not, right? I mean, we do things that involve people sharing information with other people. Anything that involves...
That's pretty broad.
No, but anything that involves content or specific expertise in an area, so games is I think, a really deep area, music, movies, TV, news, like any
you're going to want to stay away from those movies.
Like any of this stuff, like it's, oh, now I get that. I wasn't sure where you're going with that.
I had to get it in somewhere,
Whatever, it's all good. I think that over the next 5 years, those verticals are all going to be completely rethought, and there are going to be some really good businesses built. And some of them will be incumbents that incorporate social functionality, and some of them will be new startups thinking it from scratch.
Talking about music makes me think...
I didn't actually get back to your ads thing at the end, but the 2-sentence link at the end there was our view is that we should play a role in helping to reform and rethink all of those industries, and we'll get value proportional to what we put in, right? So in gaming, we get some percentage of the value of those companies, largely through their transactions, through buying ads and credits right now, but that's all because we're helping them, right? And if we're helpful to other industries and building out what would be a good solution for e-commerce or anything like that, then I think that there will be some way that we'll get value from that. But I don't think about exporting an ad system or anything like that anytime soon.
But there's sort of a segue here, whether it's advertising or not. There's 2 models for you to exploit your platform, and one is demonstrated by someone like Zynga. They're on Facebook. The other is you're exporting your social knowledge, your social graph out to other sites. Even if it's not advertising, you could, for example, imagine Facebook as an engine for social commerce that's available to many, many startups off Facebook. Or you can say, no, what we're really going to do is we're going to build social selling into Facebook. You can imagine, Facebook Places, well, it's built into Facebook versus you could have been an enabler for many, many location-based startups. How do you decide on the inbound platform versus the outbound platform aspect of what you do? Because social enabling other people is a really, really powerful capability that you have.
Yeah, so I guess we think it's going to happen in all these places. But earlier on, even 6 months ago, I kind of thought of this distinction between there's Canvas inside of Facebook and there's Connect if you want to build outside of Facebook. But recently our thinking has come around to, actually they're just kind of different things, and in a lot of ways it makes sense for people to do both. And in addition to a mobile app and mobile web app and like lots of different types of apps, right?